Hey everybody, it's Nathan. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. Today I'm taking a look at a video that I recorded actually a few weeks ago now that I just haven't had a chance to get back to. I recorded this during a live Happy Place meeting, which is part of Art Journaling the Magic. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description. Tangi does a really cool monthly meetup where we get to do usually it's based on a movie or some kind of Disney property, and I guess that's what's a franchise, Disney subject. And this month we actually got to, the idea was that we were going to design our own Loungefly bag. So if you're not familiar with Loungefly, it's just the brand that produces all of the character bags, mini bags, and accessories that are sold in the parks mostly. You can find them at Hot Topic and other places, but they do it for other properties, Harry Potter and other like pulp culture brands. So I decided I actually logged on just to watch. I really didn't have any intention in following along. I remember I wasn't feeling it that day. But whenever the idea of creating our own Loungefly bag was presented, I just got super inspired for some reason by Aladdin. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the new Genie Plus that was on my mind. I don't even know if it actually was announced for the parks, the system that is replacing FastPass that has everyone in a tizzy. But I hope, I don't know. Anyway, that might have been what was on my mind. So I thought, how cool would it be to have a backpack that was like Genie's face, and then as the front pouch have the lamp. And in my mind, the little lamp would have a zipper that kind of like the lid for the lamp would zip off, and that would be sort of like a little extra bag that would detach from Genie. So that was like a 2-in-1 bag. So you could wear the backpack with the lamp attached, or you could completely take it off and just carry the lamp as a separate bag. Like, how cool. I think that'd be really cool. So that's what I got started doing. And you can see that I was trying to make everything super symmetrical. And I was looking at a reference of Genie, and I was trying to figure out how to include his face but sort of make it square, and at the same time have like the fun creative bits. So like, you'll see eventually that I made the top handle that you pick it up from the top, his hair, stuff like that. And I was really struggling. Like, I was struggling with trying to get the proportions correct, because I was already like skewing the proportions, and then to make them symmetrical was super difficult, and I erased a ton. I usually don't worry about erasing, and I'm just kind of messy. But in this case, I really wanted a clean final product, so I was trying to sketch lightly and erase as much as possible. You know, some people like doing that, some people don't. I do it sometimes I don't. I was sketching so much that I couldn't just sketch it and then ink it and then erase, because I would have been so confused with all of the lines. So I was struggle bussing a little bit, but in the end it was fine. I just erased a whole ton. I actually can't believe that it took me a few weeks to get back to this video, but it's been an adventure here. Coletta started back to work as a third grade teacher, and so that routine for us has been interesting to get used to. So she leaves around 6 a.m. or like a little after 10 a.m. So I get up early, and I usually make her a smoothie and pack her lunch while she's getting ready for the day, and then I see her off before I come up to the office to start working on stuff. We are not morning people by any stretch of the imagination, so it has been interesting and a little bit of a rough transition, but now it seems like it's working fine. So you see I added some detail to the bag and started, well, actually I erased like half of the pencil with a kneaded eraser and rolling it across the page, trying not to erase everything, but to just lighten some of those lines, especially since there was so much. And then I used what is that called, that pen? A Pentel sign pen in black, which has a brush nib on the end, and it's pretty sturdy, so that you really have to press to get like a really thick line. But it's good for inking, just to give you that varied line weight. And I'm looking at the sketch now on the screen, realizing that I don't know if I had too much coffee or what's going on, but my hands were super shaky that day when I was inking. But I'm not too worried about it, because with all of the layers of watercolor and mixed media color pencil, gel pen, etc. that's coming, it'll help disguise that and kind of hide that. But I went in, then I did all the dark, there wasn't too much just black area, so I just used that same sign pen to color it in. And then I left it dry because I didn't want to smear the black ink everywhere. And I'm not sure that it actually is waterproof. It seemed like it was. I think it is. And that's the other reason I wanted it to dry completely before I started adding watercolor. Because you can see that there's a little bit, like if I touch where the pen was not fully dried into the paper, it ran just a little bit, but I'm pretty sure if you let it dry completely, it is waterproof. I went in with my Daniel Smith watercolors, and I actually am never this neat with the watercolors, but since this was more of an illustration, I thought I wanted the paint to be sort of flat and all one color, if that makes sense. So the blue, I used a manganese blue hue from Daniel Smith. And then for the gold, I used Lost Girl Watercolor, the same paint that I used for the Luca project that I did last time. And that is her Mary Flair palette. And that color was the concept color. It's like a green gold and has a little bit of gold shimmer to it. After I had the main bag done, I was trying to figure out what kind of background that I could put on it to make it. So I was thinking, like, if you go to the store to buy it and they were going to merchandise it and they were going to put it in a display, what would the display look like? If you go to the Disney store, like they had a table of these bags, what would it look like? And I thought, well, the table should have a magic carpet tablecloth, first of all. And then in the background, it would probably have like the Agrabah landscape in the, with Agrabah off in the distance and looking across the desert. So that's sort of where my mind went. And I tried to translate that into a background as much as possible. So I went in and added the magic carpet. And I was trying to do, like, if you were setting it on a table and you got down low to look at the bag, the table would go, forced off into the distance in a stretched perspective. Forced perspective, I guess. I don't know. So that's sort of the idea that I went with. And then here I was trying to make the lines a little bit. I used the roller to draw out the rectangle, but then I didn't whenever I inked it, so that the carpet would have rough edges. I didn't want it to be just straight. I guess if it was laying over top of a table, it would have straight edges. But regardless, this is the point where I realized that I completely forgot. Like, it wasn't looking like a backpack, and I could not figure out why. I was like, if it was just flat on, you wouldn't see the zipper or like the three-dimensional part of it. And then I realized as I was painting that I never added like backpack straps to it. And that was like the key identifier to say this is a backpack, which I just didn't include. So it was just a genie head with weird hair. So I had to figure out how I could add the backpack straps in after I had already And you can see that I was like, oh, it needs a Loungefly tag because that'll make it look like a backpack. So I looked up to see what a Loungefly tag looked like, and I drew that on and realized, nope, still doesn't look like a backpack. I could not figure it out. And then that's when I was like, how do I add? So see, I'm adding a zipper because that's going to make it look like a backpack. Not so much, but okay. And I'm thinking about it. And then how do I add backpack straps after I've already painted the background, the carpet? So I kind of drew them in to get the perspective, and I was looking at reference photos. And I ended up just trying to lift the watercolor off of the page where the carpet was already painted as much as I could. And then add a lot of like dark shading to kind of cover up that paint as much as I could. Here I am lifting just with a lot of clean water, lifting that watercolor as much as possible, and then going back in with a darker shade, which eventually I realized wasn't good either, because then it just blended in and it didn't look like backpack straps. And so I let it dry so that I could go back in and add, I think I added a lighter color watercolor, and then eventually I added some Posca paint pen to it, some acrylic paint to get it to stand out a little bit. So I went from a dark blue to a slate gray to another blue color, and it still didn't pop off the page enough. And that's when I tried to add a little bit of separation with the white gel pen, because I thought that would separate it, which it did, but I still don't think that at that point it still wasn't popping enough. And that's when I decided to go back in with the Posca paint pen. Of course, after it dried. I really tried to do it with just watercolor, but wasn't working. Then I used a Tombow brush pen to add some dimension. I really like how the shadow of the lamp was on the carpet. And I don't know if it's all like actual, like true to life how it would be, but I thought it was really cool. That was my favorite part of the shadow thing that I did with the little spout of the lamp there. And here I am adding the Posca paint pen, which it did in the long run help, and it fixed the problem. So now that my backpack actually looks like a backpack. So crisis averted, and I left it dry. I used a fan to dry it, and then just wanted to add in the background, which at first I kind of skipped the idea of doing the desert and wanted to do it like on the floor and add like floor planks, but then I realized that was just going to be way too much. So I wanted to add that desert background with the giant moon in the background, so I traced my water bottle to get a rough circle. I still didn't want it to be perfect. And then add in the Agrabah skyline, and then just do a really cool watercolor sunset effect. And I realized that the Agrabah skyline was going to be too detailed to paint, especially since it wasn't the focus of the page. So I decided just to do plain mountains with the sunset in the background, and I think it worked out pretty well. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of how the background ended up being. I think it was too dark. I could have left some more negative space, especially if you wanted to turn it into a journal page. All in all, however, for what it's worth, I do enjoy the page. I think it turned out really neat. And I learned a few lessons with the proportions and the erasing and trying to add an element into a page that was sort of already done by lifting the watercolor and then using the mixed media on top to make it work. But yeah, then a little bit of white gel pen to finish off the details, and that was my page. Thanks for following along on that little adventure, and until next time, stay creative. Bye.